Hey guys, what is going on? It's Fen here again. So today we're going to be modelling this sword. Now it's going to be a part of a series. This video is going to be probably in two parts, 1 and 2. Probably the first part is going to be the top end, the second part probably going to be the lower end. Just because of how complicated some of the stuff is, we're going to have to take quite a bit of time explaining it and walking through the process. Then we're going to move on to UVing, texturing, and then finishing off with lighting and rendering. So, you know, we're going to be doing a few videos on this, which I hope you guys will find interesting. But yeah, one thing to note is there is a difference between a concept and a reference. A reference is something that you know exists. And let's take a cup for example. You can go to Google, you can search a cup, you could take your own pictures of a cup and you would know what they would look like because it's a reference. A concept is different because a concept is something that doesn't exist. Yes, swords exist, but does this sword exist? Probably not. And that's what the difference is with a concept. And when you are modelling from a concept, don't be so anal about getting everything exact, because it doesn't need to be exact. For example, a pure example of this would be on the handle. The handle has this type of indent running down the center of it, which I will be putting in. And the reason I will be putting in because I just don't like the look of it. It just looks weird. So I'm going to model this, but I'm not going to be super accurate. I'm going to take the concepts that I like and use them, and if anything needs tweaking, then fair enough, I will tweak it. And that's really one thing that you need to kind of incorporate, and even incorporate in this tutorial. You don't have to copy the concept or the tutorial exactly how I'm doing it. If you want to add more segments or less segments, or you want to add less bolts or something like that, then fair enough, do that, because that's how you're really going to learn. But saying that, let's get started. So if you check the description, you'll find this file. This is the start file, and in here you'll have a layers called finished. That's important. We're going to be using that pretty soon. So first things first, I'm going to create a cylinder, because the problem with concept is because there's not a lot of different concept pieces of this. This is just one object. And it's just one, it's someone created it and that's it. They didn't create different angles, so we kind of need to base this off of something that we know is a specific size. And luckily enough, the handle looks like it's a radius of 50, which is really ideal. So from this handle, from the perspective, we know that this handle, everything else has to be based around the size of this. So we'll kind of get to that when we start creating these different objects, but that's pretty much something you need to focus on. So I'm going to change the height segments on here to 40, and I'm going to change the rotation segments to 24. And then I'm going to make this editable, but before we do that, go into caps and turn off caps because we don't need them. So with this, I'm going to move it down. I'm going to move it to around here, and we're going to go into points mode, live selection, and turn off only select visible elements, because what we want to do is basically move these up to give us a bit of a curvature, which is kind of important. So we're going to be deselecting outer ones and just bringing this up, and this is going to give us our bulge that we want for our handle. And we're going to bring this up even more. You can be as accurate as you want with this. It doesn't matter all too much, but I guess the more accurate you are, the better it's going to look. You do want kind of a smooth curvature here, especially because this is going to be smoothed out. So this is what we have, and it looks pretty good. What I want to do now is we want to drop this into a cloner, but before we do that, I just want to move it down just below this starting point here. So I'm going to hold Alt down, I'm going to go on More Graph and click on Cloner. I want to go into the cloner on the Y position and bring this down until these are touching, and I guess 40 looks perfect actually. And then I'm going to increase this to, let's see, 25 is way too many, So probably to 21. We could get away with 20 actually, now that I think of it. Yeah, actually let's go 21. Better safe than sorry, I suppose. So now we've got that, I'm going to highlight both of these, right click, and I'm going to go to current state to object. I'm going to delete this cloner. I'm going to bring down this one and shift and click all of these. Right click and go connect objects plus delete, and then bring this out of the cloner and just rename this to handle. Now that we've got the handle, what we're going to do is we're going to grab all the points, right click and go to optimize. It's important that we optimize these because they are technically connected. To make sure they are connected, I'm going to drop this into a subdivision surface, and you can see we don't get any weird results. The geometry flows fine, so we know it's connected. Now what we're going to do is we're going to make these indents. So unfortunately this part is going to take a little bit of a while, but let's see how fast we can do it. I'm going to use UL, and I'm going to select all of these segments running down, and we're going to be beveling these, but unfortunately before we can bevel them we do have to select them all. I'm just holding shift to add to selection. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to bevel, zoom in a bit and bevel these out. I'm probably going to bevel them to about 7. And I'm going to add one segment. I'm then going to use UL again, but instead I'm going to select all of the points in the middle instead. So the loop in the middle that we added, we're going to be selecting that. And yes, this does take a while, but unfortunately there's no faster way to select all of these. And that's it. So we're going to go to a top view, we're going to go to the scale tool, and we're going to scale these in. Now again, this is where your creativity comes in. You know, how far do you want to scale these in? I'm going to go for quite a big scale, something along them lines. And if we turn on the subdivision, you can see this is what we get. We get a very cool looking object. Now we get a little bit of a shading error here. If you go into the thong tag and turn off use edge breaks, you will get a very smooth result. So if that's something that you like, awesome, you're done. However, I want to do something a little bit different because I don't really like that. I'm going to turn off the subdivisions. I'm going to use UL again, and I'm going to select the top and bottom parts of the original bevel. So instead of having these very smooth, we're going to be adding control edges to give us a very nice hard edge, which is going to make this look a lot more sturdier rather than some kind of decoration for some Victorian house or something. So again, we can't do anything particularly fast here except select all these. Then what we're going to do is we're going to zoom in and we're going to right click and go to bevel. And we're going to bevel these probably about 1, and we're going to leave a 1 subdivision on here. So now when we add this hard surface, you can see we get a very nice looking, it looks solid, it looks a really solid piece of geometry, you know, it looks fantastic. It's a really nice hard edges, and when we render it out you can see it looks really nice. One thing we want to do though is go to points. We want to select all the outer points on the top and bottom and just zero them out on the side, which is technically the scale. And we want to do this because we want to make sure everything is lined up properly. There's no point having these all wonky because they will intersect our other geometry. So there we go. So that is pretty much done in terms of that. What I do like to do is go into my thong tag and turn this down just a tiny bit. You can play with that at the end, it's not really important. So I'm going to jump into layers, I'm going to grab this and I'm going to drop it into finished. Now in the finish we're going to turn off the hierarchy and visibility. The reason we do that is just simply because it's a lot easier to remove that and not get confused with deleting it or being in the way, stuff like that. So what we're going to do is we're going to create this top object next, which is a little bit of a complex object, but we'll get through it. So I'm going to create a cube, and this cube is going to be moved up here. Now the y-axis here, which is the height, I want this to be 150, and I want the x-axis to be 250, and I want the z-axis to be 150 also. So this is pretty much what we have. In here I'm going to turn on the ground lines, and I'm going to add one subdivision to all of the sides. I'm then going to make this editable, and I'm going to go to the top and delete the back side of this, just because we don't actually need to see it. And we can also delete the bottom half of this as well, simply because it's pretty much a duplicate. In fact, you could even just model 1/4, but I do like to model like this. It's just a lot easier for me. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the edge here and the edge here, make sure no other edges are connected, or selected should I say, and then we're going to right click and we're going to go to bevel and bevel this out, maybe to around 18 with one subdivision, and then we're going to confirm that. I'm also going to go to file, and I'm going to go to save, because we want to save our work just in case we get any unforeseen errors or crashes. Once we've got that, what we can do now is we can grab this this section here and start filling in the insets, and we can start filling in other things as well. So first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab a symmetry object, and the reason I'm going to grab a symmetry object right now is because I like to see how the symmetry is going to work on this type of look, so top and bottom. It's just a little bit easier to kind of understand what's happening. Apologies if you can hear noise out, the bin men are coming to empty bins. Anyways, we're going to connect these up, and before we do that we're going to select all and optimize to get rid of them stray points. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into the knife tool, into the line, and we're going to click here, hold shift, drag down, and that's going to give us a straight line. Now because we don't have a line down the bottom, we have to use shift in a perspective like this, like the front, in order to get that. However, on this side we don't have to hold shift because they're perfectly aligned, so we get this already connected basically. And what we want to do now is we want to create this indent here. Now it's a little bit wonky. I just don't think adding that kind of detail in is going to serve much purpose, so we might as well meet it halfway. And in my opinion, meeting it halfway is just basically doing an inset like so. And we don't want to basically do what is it, this, do you know where it's actually giving us this this lip at the bottom? We don't want that because these are supposed to be connected. Now I know you can do it with the maximum angle, I think it was, or is it preserve groups? I'm not sure if we can do it like this. So just to save a little bit of time in terms of that, I'm just going to grab these and make them current state to object. That way these are one object. You're just going to make it a little bit easier. I'm going to right click, optimize, and then do that again. So I'm going to select all of these, right click, extrude inner, and just extrude it inner to around there. Going to the perspective, right click, extrude, and we want to extrude this in a bit as well. 7.5 looks fine to me. So this is what we have so far. It looks okay. Everything looks fine. Yeah, so I'm happy with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the splines. I'm going to make a circle. I'm going to change the adaptive angle to about 50 to 60, which is going to give us 8 sides. And then I'm going to move this up. And then I'm going to turn on snapping. And I'm going to turn on everything: edge, poly, spline, axis, intersection, and midpoint. You'll understand why in a minute. And then I'm going to grab this and basically just snap it to the center of this these edges. And then I'm going to reduce the radius down as well until I get something that looks about right. So 26 looks okay. I'm then going to grab this cube, I'm going to go into edges, right click, and I'm going to go into knife, and I want to put some edges, edge loops in here. So I'm going to turn off visible only, click, hold shift and then drag, click, hold shift and drag, and then we can grab these and we can move them in or out depending on what we want. You might want to turn off snapping for this, so we can just move it across. And then what we're going to do is going to grab the knife tool again, but be sure to check on visible only because we don't want to be cutting through anywhere random. And what we're going to do is turn on snapping, and again we're going to click to each one of these points because it's snapping to a spline. We can then connect all of these up, which is going to give us a little bit more control, like so. So this is what we have so far, which looks pretty good, although this isn't really circular. So what we can do is tag these points and just basically drag and snap them to them spline points, which is then going to give us this perfect circle. Awesome. So what we're going to do now is we're going to grab this circle and we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And we need to up the scale for this. Now we can't really see it here, so I'm going to grab the move tool and just move it up. And we're going to grab this and just increase the radius to around 70. 70 looks pretty decent. I'm going to go back into the cube, and what I'm going to do is, I'm just thinking, is 70 okay? Because we are missing a bit off that edge. I think I might bring that down just a tiny bit, maybe 65. Yeah, 65 looks better. So I'm going to grab these points, because they're overlapping this where we're going to be cutting, we need to move them out slightly. And this one as well, move them out slightly. And then we're going to grab the knife tool again and turn on, of course, snapping, and we're going to snap from this edge to here, which again, we're having issues doing that, so we just need to zoom in a little bit and make it a lot easier for us. And again, we need to make sure we can see. There we go. And then what we're going to do again is going to grab these midpoints and snap these, and then we're going to move them as well to snap that into the correct position. And if we have a look now, we have something completely weird because it's upside down, which is kind of weird because we did it from the top. But that's absolutely fine, and the reason that's fine is because what we can do is we can grab said object and we can rotate said object, and you would never know. Except the axis is a little bit weird now, so we can grab the axes and we can just rotate that back, and there we go. And then what we can do is we can actually go to mesh, axis center and center 2 to center that up. In fact, we actually want to do that yet, because if we do that now, the problem is when we add a symmetry modifier, it's going to be out of place. So let's not just do that just yet. And we can actually delete this circle now. So I'm going to save again, and if we add a hyperNURBS to this object, you can see we get a somewhat messy thing, which is fine, I suppose. What I want to do is I want to now delete the bottom of this, which is in polygon mode. So I'm going to delete the bottom of this, and I'm going to get rid of the stray points, of course, and then I'm going to drop this into a symmetry object, and of course add the symmetry on, then drop the symmetry into the subdivision. So there we go, we're back to square one, if you like. So what we need to do now is we need to harden these edges up. So First thing we're going to do is we're going to go to the top view, and we're going to go into edges, right click, go to knife, I'm going to go to plane, and we're going to cut a line across here. Now we're going to go into points mode, we're going to right click, go to stitch and sew, and stitch these triangles that we created, and that's going to leave us with quads again. So you can see straight away, if we turn off wireframe, that these edges are looking a lot sharper, which is nice for us. So we want to make another loop across here to keep this edge, very smooth. So what we're going to do is we're going to turn on only select visible elements, and we're going to select this outer ring, and then we're going to go right click, and we're going to go to extrude inner, and we're going to extrude this in about so, and that's going to leave us with this kind of double edge, which isn't what we want. So again, we're going to go to right click, and we want stitch and sew, and I like to go to point mode for this just because it makes it a little bit easier, and we're going to basically stitch these together to get rid of that extra loop that we added in that we don't technically need. And again, we do need this outer edge, so we can't just stitch that together because we're going to get this triangle. What you need to do is go into the knife tool, go into the line, and just kind of shift and drag this down so we get this meeting point, and then go back to stitch and sew and just drag these together. And you want to do that on both sides, of course. So drag that in, right click, go to knife, drop this down, and then right click, stitch and sew, and drop them in. And that's what we're going to get. So we're going to get a really nice hard edge now, which is really cool. Now when it comes to this section here, where we're going to be fixing these points, because if we add points in here, let's just say for argument's sake, that actually looks really ideal. What we can do is go to the edge mode, use UL to select this edge, and then we can go right click and use slide, and then we can slide this up to give this a bit of a harder edge. Then we can also right click and go to knife and loop, and again we can add a loop at the back here just to give us a bit of a hard edge. So this is now becoming a hard edge, except for the fact that this corner point is really smooth. So one way of doing it would be just to throw some straight edges in here to kind of block that up, but you will get pinching that way. So what I'm going to do is, because this material is really bugging me, and I'm pretty sure you guys won't be able to see if I can't see, I'm just going to darken this material a little bit just so you can see a little bit better. And we're going to grab the knife tool, and we're going to use a knife tool. I'm going to use a method called loop. So what we're basically going to do is we're going to grab an edge. I'm going to bring it up. I'm going to bring it up here. I'm going to connect it here, and then we want to bring it back down to here and basically loop it. And you'll understand what we're doing when you have a look at the results. So we're going to bring this up to here, connect it to this edge, bring it back down, and bring it back the way we came. And because this is on a loop, because it's on symmetry, you've basically done the bottom side as well, so that's really cool. So if we turn on the shading, you can see that we get a really nice result. It's very sharp. It can be even sharp if you bring the edges in. It's all about tweaking at this stage. However, we do get a little bit of pinching on this flat surface, and the reason for that is very simple. It's because we have triangles. So what we can do is we can go back to the edge mode, and we can grab the knife tool with the line tool, and we can bring these edges up and out. So what we can do is grab this and bring it all the way to the back, and grab this one and bring it all the way to the top. Now it doesn't look pretty, but you can neaten these up. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to grab the point tool over here, point mode should I say, and I'm going to grab the live selection tool, grab this point and just move it over, and this is going to create a quad. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 4 sides, and then down here you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you got quite a few sides here, but that's a very easy fix which I'm going to show you. So once we've got these in place, it's pretty much up to you to grab them and kind of say, well, this needs to be tighter, this needs to be looser. It's entirely up to you. We're just going to be moving these edges up. And when you are moving edges, use the slide tool or move them in just one axis only, which I'm moving these in Y, and then I'd move these in the X axis. And I do have visible elements turned off, so I'm not accidentally selecting things that don't need to be selected. So as you can see, this looks pretty good here. Move these in the Z. One thing we will have to do is right click, stitch and sew, and just stitch these edges together. And because it's going to be symmetried over, we don't have to do too much to get this looking relatively decent. So again, I'm going to grab these, make sure they're all moved over. That looks okay to me. Bring these up. Bring this in. And you can spend a lot more time tweaking this if you want. Again, we need to right click, go to knife, and we need to bring these edges in and up. And just, of course, connect these off. Like so. And again, because we're using a symmetry object, we only have to do this for 2 sides instead of 4, or even 8 if you're doing it on the opposite side as well. So it does help out a lot. And then about these edges down here, I'll give you an example of why we're doing this anyways. If you look at the curvature of this, you can see it's very smooth. But if we add in them extra points, so let's go to the knife tool and add this in like so, and again across here like so, and down here, we then get another control edge on the outer side as well as keeping this all connected. So with this on, you can see how smooth and sharp this edge is. Smooth and sharp, I guess they don't really mix, but you kind of get my idea. It's not perfectly sharp, which isn't really what we want, but we do get these smooth edges, but you know, with a sharp corner, and we don't get any shading errors, which is really nice. Again, if you do get any shading errors, all it takes is to go in and just basically adjust these a little bit. You know, get your corners right, get these edges all perfect and evened out, and you know, you're pretty much left with a really nice looking geometry. And you know, you can tweak these to your heart's content, to be honest, but the overall look of this is perfect. You've got all quads, you know, that they're all pretty even. You could in fact even go in here into the knife tool, into the loop, and just add an extra loop in here into the center. If we did that correctly, knife tool 50, there we go. So you know, you can even all these out, which makes it look a lot better. And that is pretty much it for kind of securing this inner side, if you like. So let's work on the last part, which is these objects, I suppose, the circular bits. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to combine this. So right click, current state to object, delete that, grab the original, and I'm going to select all and optimize this. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this front part and I'm going to work on this one first. So first thing I want to do is I want to extrude this inwards. So I'm going to go to extrude inner bring this in about 0.8. I'm going to do it one more time, so it's going to be another 0.8, and then I'm going to right click extrude. I'm going to extrude this down about 0.4, extrude it down about 1.6. These aren't anything particular, they're just kind of what I'm feeling right now. And then 0.4 again. There we go. And then extrude inner 0.3. And then we're going to extrude this out to about 0.3. And then I'm going to extrude out again. Now the reason I'm extruding a very small amount is because if you don't, you have to go in and add control edges to keep these edges from being smooth. And you know, trying to get in here is very difficult. You'll have to change your mode to lines, and then you have to go in and select them. And it's just kind of a pain. You might as well just do it as you're actually modeling. So we've got this here, which looks a little bit cool. I'm actually going to bring it down just a tiny bit. I'm going to right click, I'm going to extrude this again, just a very small amount, probably 0.3. And then I'm going to right click, I'm going to go to bevel, and I'm going to bevel this out. I don't want any subdivisions, I just want the extrusion to be about 2 and the offset to be about 1 seems fine. And then I'm going to probably extrude this inwards to about there, and just extrude it one more time. Now one of the things you may notice with this extrude tool, I have no idea why it does this, but things start to get a little bit wonky when you use the bevel tool. So to kind of compensate that, what you need to do is grab all the edges. But to do that, we need to turn off all invisible elements. And yeah, I'm not sure why it does this, but you want to deselect the ones that you don't need, which are them and the top ones here. And you can tell these are only selected because it's basically the axis tool is there. And then go down here to the Z and just zero that out. That's pretty much the only way you can kind of fix it. Then once you've done that, we can go to the line tool and we can use UL and we can select this, and then we can just slightly bevel this as well. Before I bevel again, I'm going to save it. And the reason I do that is because sometimes the bevel tool does have quite a nasty reaction, and it can crash cinema. I'm going to select these again and just extrude them slightly. So now if we turn on the subdivisions, you see we get a really nice looking object, which looks pretty cool. And again, if it's a little bit low res, you can increase this as well so you get this kind of look, which looks really, really cool. So what we can do now is we can focus on the top as well. So what we're going to do is we're going to grab this and we're going to drop this into a symmetry object, and the reason we do this is just so we can actually see what's going on and if everything looks right. That's kind of the important thing, right? If it looks right. So I'm going to grab this, and what I may end up doing is actually just combining this. The reason before that is because we're going to be using the inset tool, and it's going to cause issues. So current state to object, delete that. And then what we're going to do is we're going to optimize that. And then what we're going to do is grab this top part and the bottom part, which should select both of them considering we have visible elements select off, and that looks fine. So what we're going to do is we're going to focus on the top end, and we're going to right click, extrude inner. We're going to extrude inner again. We're going to extrude upwards. We're going to extrude inner, extrude down, and then we're going to extrude inner again. Now the reason I did it this way is because I'm trying to show you two different methods of adding control edges. So we did that one really quickly, but now we have to add in the control edges. So that pretty much means going into the knife tool, got the loop selection, so add a loop there, add a loop there, a loop there, a loop there, and a loop there. So when we turn on the subdivisions, you can see this is what we get. However, we do want to kind of change this up a little bit. So we want to use UL, select both of these, right click and use the bevel tool, and just bevel these out. And then we want to use UL again, select all of these edges and bevel these out just slightly, which is going to give us an extremely hard edge. So there we go. Now we have to do that on the opposite side, which is, you know, if you don't remember the settings, it can be a little bit awkward. So again, I'm just going to grab the top end here and just bevel this out, something like that. And then we're going to bevel this again, but we have to select all these individually, which is a little bit of a pain. And then we're going to hit bevel and bevel these again by 0.4, I think it was 0.04. I think that was what we used, not quite sure, but it should be okay. And then we're going to use the knife tool again and add in these control edges. And this is one of the bad things about doing this method. If you don't remember you know, what values you used, then you're going to maybe get odd looking, you know, they're supposed to be symmetrical, but they may be odd looking. Like here, this one's very small, and this one's kind of, actually I think it's opposite around, that one's kind of small, gap in the middle, and this one is obviously a lot sharper. So maybe this method isn't the best, but if you can remember the actual details, then, you know, the numbers you use, then fair enough. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to undo that and do it the way that I normally like to do it, which isn't too bad. So I can only go back to there. So I'm going to save it, and then I'm going to go extrude inner. Actually, I'm going to extrude this up by 0.4, extrude it up again to about 20. And then going to extrude it up again by 0.4, and then going to extrude it inwards by 5, and then going to extrude it downwards by negative 0.4, and then I'm going to extrude it down again to about negative 30, and then I'm going to extrude it down again by negative 0.4, and then I'm going to extrude it inner by 0.4, and then I'm going to extrude it in one more time, and this is what we get. We get a, you know, a nicer looking result. And it really depends, like, you know, what kind of style you're going for. If you want the edge to be beveled, then, you know, bevel it. I kind of like this look. It looks pretty decent. Yeah, it looks good. So now that we've got that, what we can do is increase the subdivision, and we can really get a good feel of what it's going to look like, which looks pretty nice. Let's add a small splash of specular. And we can drop this into finished and basically bring these back, and we can add this to this, and we can turn on the subdivisions and kind of just give a look of what this looks like, which in my opinion looks pretty damn good so far. So we can just render this out, and yeah, it looks really, really cool. So guys, I'm going to file, save, and this is the first part of the tutorial. So hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Hopefully you will be looking forward to the next section, which will be the middle part here, which if we're lucky we could probably get away with duplicating this and just making a few edits, and then the blade, of course. So guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I will catch you in the next episode. Peace.